I have a real interest in costume and fashion. So that comes into it. I have a real interest in certain eras, and that was because of that, it's what triggered my desire to create the photo. So it is quite intertwined. There are certain eras, the clothing I really don't like at all. I don't like the 1930s to 50s. I hate Art Nouveau and Art Deco. Absolutely hate it. But I don't know why. I mean, there's no reason, but there are just certain eras that really appeal to me. And I think it's often people are nostalgic for eras they didn't actually exist in. So for me, it's the late Victorian era in the 60s. And also, I think that's about it. But yeah, it's important that that's...
Yes, I mean, the image on the right sort of looks like one of those children from a glossy magazine in the 1980s.
Oh, okay.
Sort of overbloated with consumerism. And the concern is so dramatic that...
Yeah. I do spend a lot of time looking at old magazines and advertising and all that sort of thing. So I like the idea of replicating the techniques used by photographers who do ad campaigns, but not for that purpose. And also being shaped by the 80s, you know, growing up. Advertising was very potent. You know, there are certain campaigns that still resonate, still life campaigns. I really like the still life work of Irving Penn. He did the Clinique cosmetic campaigns with really great photos of lipsticks, really amazingly produced. And I like the idea of trying to replicate something so specific yet in quite a humble suburban way in my living room.
I think one of the interesting things about Limpid is how it looks like it's a photograph that has been made for a particular viewer. Like it looks like a photograph that's been commissioned for somebody who wanted to see a particular person depicted in a particular way. And when you look at it, you realize that you're not that person, but that somebody else is. That's something that's kind of quite off-putting or creepy about it.
Well, I do know a lot of people, because you know I make a living through selling my work, and a lot of people just said they couldn't live with this. Don't know why, but I can relate to that as well. It's quite sort of it's slightly harrowing, I feel, you know. But if she was smiling, maybe it would be even more disturbing.
Ruth.
Well, I like painting and sculpture because I like things I don't have a skill for. Because I like things I couldn't do myself. So I like things that I couldn't do. So I do like I like painting and sculpture, and I also like photojournalism from, you know, the 20th century, because I don't have an aptitude to be a documentary photographer. I'm far too sort of reclusive, so I really like, you know, the sort of, well, maybe not Diane Arbus, but I'm just thinking people in their environments, photos like that, really are quite things that I kind of, I think it's a voyeuristic element maybe as well.
So how do you relate to Diane Arbus?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm quite fascinated by her story as the heiress to a department store fortune, and then a fashion photographer, and then someone who just left, you know, abandoned that, because I know her desire was to photograph every person in the world, and I can understand that desire. But the photos, I find them deeply fascinating, but they are deeply uncomfortable as well. I think they come from quite a dark place, which, you know, makes them all the more intriguing. Yes.
Do you own a digital camera?
A very basic one.
But you don't do your works
No, I'm still shoot film.
Old school.
Until film ceases to be produced, I'll still shoot it. Slightly concerned about that because less and less places are processing it, and it's a bit worrying. But I'll continue to shoot it until, all film is, no longer.
And what do you consider the limitations of the digital medium?
I don't know. Well, I know that I find skin tones look a bit strange in digital reproduction. But I haven't experienced shooting from a large format camera so I'd be quite interested to try that. But I'm not really interested in the equipment. My camera itself is almost falling apart. The lens keeps seizing up. It's very old and, there's quite a deep element of frustration to the way I work. And I need to buy a new camera, but I can't bring myself to because I like one I use. But I'm not interested in the technical aspects. I know enough to do what I do, but beyond that, I'm not interested in attending photography workshops and Photoshop. Yeah, it is. As long as the lights work and the camera works. I really do like people who are obsessed with their cameras, though. I'm interested by them. It's strange. But my second cousin, Gilbert Melrose, he ran a camera shop in Matamata, which is a small town in New Zealand. He died about 2 years ago. But I inherited his archive of photographs, and they're very interesting, so I'm hoping to exhibit those. But he was very camera oriented. He wasn't creative in the slightest, but he was really camera obsessed, so he was like the opposite, but we were related. And he photographed these events in a small farming town in New Zealand in the 50s, and the photos are just they really characterise the flavour of New Zealand in the 50s, and they're very interesting. But yeah, he was a camera boffin, and I inherited about 12 cameras from him, which I can't really use.